I called for Kathy Engelbert to resign. I don't care who it is. If somebody calls you out publicly and you're in a leadership position and you've been called out publicly and attacked that way, you don't give what I said was that weak-ass response that Kathy Engelbert, I'm going to say it again because people thought I stuttered just there. I don't know how because I don't stutter. Weak-ass comment. I'm going to say it one more time. Weak-ass comeback. That's what she did. When you were attacked like that, what you did was provide fodder to the belief that everything Nafisha Collier said was the absolute truth, nothing but the truth, so help me God. You do that, it's time for you to go.
Yesterday on First Take, Stephen A. Smith did something he almost never does. He didn't criticize a coach. He didn't call out a struggling player. He looked directly into the camera and called for the resignation of the commissioner of the Women's National Basketball Association. His message was blunt. Commissioner Kathy Engelbert should step down. The reason? Reports that the league office issued a formal warning to Caitlin Clark regarding her new broadcasting agreement with NBC Universal. According to multiple reports, the concern raised by the league centers around a potential conflict of interest tied to Clark signing a deal to appear as a broadcaster and analyst with NBC, a network that also holds WNBA broadcast rights. The league reportedly questioned whether her dual role as active player and media personality could create ethical or contractual complications. That development set off a firestorm. Stephen A. Smith reacted strongly on air, arguing that instead of scrutinizing Clark's outside success, the league should be celebrating it. His point was simple. Greater exposure for Clark means greater exposure for the WNBA. In his view, mainstream crossover visibility is marketing power, not a liability. And that's where this situation becomes bigger than one contract. Clark's arrival in the WNBA coincided with record-breaking attendance, surging merchandise sales, and a dramatic spike in national television ratings. Her presence helped drive unprecedented attention to the league. A new multi-billion-dollar media rights deal followed. Charter flights became standard. Corporate sponsors increased investment. The visibility of women's basketball expanded in ways few predicted. At the same time, Clark's rookie salary under the league's collective bargaining agreement sits around $76,000 annually, a number frequently cited in debates about compensation structure within the WNBA. Like all players, she is bound by the league's standard contract framework, which governs outside endorsements and professional activities. The NBC deal represents something different: national broadcast exposure, cross-platform visibility, and substantial financial opportunity outside league pay. Supporters argue that Clark appearing on NBC programs, discussing basketball, interviewing athletes, participating in major sports broadcasts, only strengthens the WNBA brand. NBC already broadcasts WNBA games. Increased crossover recognition could translate to broader audiences tuning in during the WNBA season. Critics within league circles, however, reportedly raised concerns about precedent, contractual boundaries, and maintaining centralized control over media relationships. That tension, exposure versus control, is at the center of this controversy. Stephen A. Smith framed it as mismanagement. He argued that punishing or pressuring the league's most marketable star sends the wrong message, both to fans and sponsors. He questioned why a league seeking growth would challenge an opportunity that expands its visibility. Others see a more complicated dynamic. Veteran players spent years advocating for better travel.
And then the person I call the golden goose of the WNBA, Caitlin Clark, you understand, who is box office for the WNBA. Just look at the numbers, look at the ratings, look at everything. For her to come out and said, Fee said it all. She's letting you know that Nafisha Collier didn't lie, she didn't mince words, and she didn't misrepresent what the collective body of the league is feeling about this commissioner and her leadership. You can, and then the biggest point, guys, that I made yesterday, and this is the number one reason.
Conditions, improved pay, and greater respect. Clark's meteoric rise brought rapid change, increased ratings, larger sponsorship deals, and media attention that accelerated long-standing demands. For some, that shift has created underlying friction about recognition, equity, and credit. The commissioner's reported warning, whether procedural or precautionary, has now become symbolic. To supporters of Clark, it represents institutional insecurity. To league defenders, it may represent standard governance and contract enforcement. Legally speaking, any dispute would likely hinge on contract language and partnership agreements. NBC Universal, owned by Comcast, is one of the largest media companies in the world. The WNBA, as a professional league with formal broadcast contracts, operates within negotiated frameworks. Public speculation aside, any real conflict would ultimately be resolved through legal interpretation, not social media outrage. But perception matters. Sponsors such as Nike, Gatorade, State Farm, and Wilson have invested heavily in Clark's brand. Corporate partners closely monitor league stability. Fans, meanwhile, have shown that their engagement follows star power. If the league escalates enforcement, it risks backlash. If it backs down, it risks appearing reactive. That's the balancing act facing Commissioner Engelbert. Stephen A. Smith believes the league is mishandling its most valuable asset. He views Clark as a generational opportunity, a golden goose whose success lifts the entire ecosystem. From that perspective, restricting her external growth is counterproductive. Others argue that professional leagues must maintain consistent standards for all players, regardless of popularity. Allowing one athlete unique flexibility could create internal divisions. What happens next will define more than a media contract. If Clark continues her NBC appearances without consequence, the controversy may fade. If the league imposes disciplinary measures, it could trigger a significant public relations battle, one that tests fan loyalty, sponsor alignment, and leadership credibility. One thing is certain, the spotlight is intense. Clark has leverage. She has endorsement deals, broadcasting opportunities, and international playing options. The WNBA, meanwhile, is experiencing its most commercially significant moment in decades. This is not just about a warning letter. It's about how a growing league manages star power. It's about control versus expansion. It's about whether leadership adapts to momentum or resists it. Stephen A. Smith has made his position clear. He believes the league should resign. Whether that happens or not, the broader issue remains. How does a league protect its structure while embracing the very star who is accelerating its growth? The world is watching. Sponsors are watching. Fans are watching. And how this unfolds could shape the next era of the WNBA.
And that next era may depend less on one contract and more on what this controversy exposes about leadership, growth, and power inside the Women's National Basketball Association. Because this isn't just about a broadcasting deal, it's about identity. For nearly 3 decades, the WNBA has fought for visibility in a crowded American sports marketplace. It battled limited media coverage, uneven marketing investment, and constant comparisons to the NBA. Progress came in waves. Expansion years, superstar eras, Olympic boosts, but sustained mainstream traction always felt just out of reach. Then came Caitlin Clark. Her impact wasn't subtle. College ratings shattered records, merchandise sold out within hours, road arenas filled to capacity. Neutral site games suddenly became must-watch television. Casual sports fans who had never followed women's basketball began debating rookie matchups and playoff seeding. When she entered the WNBA, that attention followed. National broadcasts increased, corporate interests surged, social media engagement exploded. Analysts who rarely discussed the league now led segments with WNBA highlights. The league negotiated a landmark media rights deal. Airlines shifted travel standards. Owners invested more aggressively. Momentum accelerated. And momentum changes internal dynamics. In professional sports, rapid commercial growth can create friction. Veterans who built the foundation often feel protective of the culture they sustained during leaner years. Executives feel pressure to balance competitive fairness with commercial opportunity. Sponsors push for broader exposure. Media companies want recognizable faces. In that environment, every decision carries amplified consequences. Clark's NBC role, working with NBC Universal as an on-air basketball personality, represents something rare in modern sports, an active player crossing into mainstream broadcasting while still at the beginning of her professional career. Historically, athletes have waited until retirement to transition into media. A few exceptions exist, but they are typically late career veterans. Clark's move challenges that pattern. It signals that her brand extends beyond the court. For supporters, that is visionary. For traditionalists, it raises questions. Does increased media exposure create imbalance within a locker room? Does it blur lines between league partnerships and individual branding? Does it shift power from centralized leadership to individual star leverage? These are uncomfortable questions for any sports organization. Commissioner Kathy Engelbert, a former corporate executive, understands structured governance. Leagues thrive on consistency, standardized contracts, collective bargaining frameworks, uniform policies. If one player appears to operate under different optics, internal equity concerns surface quickly. Yet there's another reality. Professional sports are driven by stars. The NBA's global expansion accelerated during the Michael Jordan era. The NFL's television dominance grew alongside quarterback-driven branding. Individual visibility fuels collective growth. Stephen A. Smith, speaking on First Take, framed the issue bluntly. In his view, restricting a star's mainstream exposure contradicts basic business strategy. His argument isn't about favoritism, it's about maximizing momentum, and momentum is fragile. If fans perceive institutional resistance to Clark's growth, engagement could shift from enthusiasm to skepticism. Modern audiences are hyper-aware of narratives. They follow storylines as much as scores. A perceived power struggle between league office and star player becomes content, debated, amplified, and monetized across platforms. Sponsors notice that. Corporate partners invest in predictability and brand synergy. If conflict overshadows competition, it introduces risk. Companies prefer alignment between league leadership and marquee athletes. At the same time, internal league politics cannot be ignored. Veteran players have legitimate perspectives. Many spent off-seasons overseas to supplement income. Many advocated for charter flights, revenue-sharing improvements, and marketing equity long before record ratings arrived. Rapid shifts can create feelings of displacement, not necessarily rooted in jealousy, but in recognition. Professional leagues must manage both gratitude for pioneers and excitement for newcomers. The challenge is perception management. If the league enforces contractual clarity quietly and professionally, the issue may stabilize. If it escalates publicly, it could trigger unintended consequences. Consider leverage. Clark possesses options beyond the WNBA structure. International leagues offer competitive salaries. Emerging domestic alternatives continue to explore new formats. Full-time broadcasting remains viable. While none of these paths are confirmed or imminent, their mere existence shifts bargaining psychology. The WNBA, meanwhile, is positioned at a pivotal growth point. Increased ratings translate to stronger negotiating power in future media deals. Stronger deals raise salary caps. Higher caps improve player retention. Retention strengthens competitive balance. All of that depends on sustained audience engagement. A suspension or public dispute involving the league's most recognizable star would test that engagement immediately. But backing down without explanation could also weaken authority. That's why this moment feels consequential. It's less about whether Clark appears on NBC and more about how the league communicates its philosophy. Does it frame outside media roles as collaborative brand expansion, or does it emphasize regulatory boundaries and centralized oversight? Leadership style matters. Engelbert has overseen significant commercial progress during her tenure. She navigated pandemic disruptions, negotiated new media agreements, and helped modernize travel standards. Her supporters argue that structural growth requires discipline. Critics argue that discipline must evolve alongside opportunity. In sports history, transformative moments often involve tension. Magic Johnson and Larry Bird reshaped the NBA's television appeal. Serena Williams redefined global interest in women's tennis. Leagues adapted, sometimes reluctantly, to star-driven economics. The WNBA may now be facing its own adaptation phase. Fans, especially younger ones, align strongly with individual personalities. They follow players across platforms, not just within league boundaries. Social media has decentralized control over narratives. Athletes build direct audiences independent of team or league channels. Clark's NBC presence fits that modern model. If the league embraces it, it signals confidence. If it restricts it, it risks appearing protective. Stephen A. Smith's resignation call amplified the stakes. Public pressure increases scrutiny. Sports talk shows thrive on conflict framing. What may have begun as internal contract clarification has now become a national debate about governance, and debates shape reputation. The coming weeks will likely clarify several things: whether formal disciplinary action is pursued, whether both sides publicly clarify contract terms, how sponsors respond, how teammates address the narrative. Every statement will be analyzed. If handled strategically, this controversy could actually strengthen the league. Transparent communication, collaborative messaging, and unified appearances could turn friction into proof of growth pains in a maturing organization. If mishandled, it could fracture trust. Clark's position remains strong. Her performance on the court continues to draw attention. Her marketability extends beyond one network deal. Ultimately, sustained excellence tends to overpower temporary disputes. The commissioner's position is more delicate. Leadership in sports is rarely judged only by revenue charts. It is judged by perception, fairness, adaptability, vision. This moment tests those qualities. At its core, the situation asks a fundamental question. Can a league built on collective identity thrive in an era increasingly defined by individual brand power? That's not just a WNBA question, it's a modern sports question. Whatever the outcome, the next chapter will influence how future stars negotiate media roles, how contracts are structured, and how leagues balance centralized control with decentralized celebrity. The spotlight remains bright, and in professional sports, how you handle the spotlight often defines your legacy more than the controversy itself.